Hi, everybody. That's a big room, and don't you want to come a little bit closer to all of us? You're so spread out. Thanks, everyone, first of all, for joining the session. We are going to talk about automated response capabilities that are coming with Windows Defender ATP soon. So my name is Heike Ritter. I'm a product manager on the Windows commercial marketing team, and very proud of what the product group is actually doing with the product and adding and adding and adding and adding. So before I hand over to my other presenter here, I would like to ask who is using Windows Defender ATP or who has trial experiences with the product itself. So this is not a lot, so I will, okay, thanks. So, and I'm joined by Nathan.
Hi, so my name is Nathan Burke, and I was the VP of Marketing at Hexadite. And a lot of what you're going to see here on the automated investigation and remediation side is the technology that's going to be put into Windows Defender ATP from Hexadite. So just to give you a little bit of context there, and we're going to be showing you what's coming soon.
Yes.
All right. So just by way of an outline here, this is what we'll be going over. So the first, just giving a little bit of background and to ground people on, what is Windows Defender ATP, looking at how it detects attacks. Then we're going to move into what I'd like to call the cybersecurity capacity problem, and really trying to understand the challenges that people are facing even when they are seeing all of these attacks that are detected. We'll look at what do we mean by security automation, and then we're going to show a couple of examples of companies that have used automation to address these challenges. And then, of course, we're going to go into what's coming in Windows Defender ATP so you can actually see how it's going to be integrated into the product.
So just quickly, because we have a few sessions on what is Windows Defender ATP, what is it today, and you can watch the recordings, but just so that everybody understands what we are adding, I would like to give you a brief overview of what Windows Defender ATP is. So when we launched the product last year in August, the product group developed a pure EDR solution, so means an endpoint detection and response solution that has a behavioral sensor built into Windows 10. It provided a rich tool for all your investigations so that you can understand the scope of a breach. And nothing needs to be deployed. Everything comes with Windows 10, and then it's a cloud solution in the backend. But of course, the product team developed this product already with a broader vision and with a broader look into the future. So with the Creators update, we added, and I'm actually still very proud of those capabilities, we added sensors to detect in-memory and kernel attacks, because we, as Microsoft, we have experts in cybersecurity, of course, and hunters, and they are tracking nation-state attacker groups or all kind of other attackers out there in the wild, and trying to understand what are they doing, and especially what are they doing next. And then I think a unique aspect here is we built the operating system, so we know each other. In our team, they can just go next door and say, hey, kernel team, what kind of visibility do I need to get to actually spot these kind of attacks? And then they discuss and they brainstorm, and then they give us the visibility that, to expose them, and our sensor will then look at those kind of behaviors in memory or in kernel. So we added those capabilities with the Creators update. And in addition, we added manual response capabilities. So you are able to isolate machines, kill processes, quarantine files. And we always leverage in-box technology. So you don't have to do anything else, deploy something. It's right there in Windows. Even though if you have third-party applications running, let's say you do not use Windows Defender AV, we will wake up the dormant Windows Defender antivirus agent and then kill the process, quarantine the file, put it back asleep, or we use the firewall that's built into Windows, so you don't have to deploy anything else. There is no dependencies on all these other technologies, but we highly recommend you, of course, to use all the built-in technologies because they're just working better together. And Yeah, I go further. So working better together is also what we are going to release with the next version, with the Fall Creators update. We are actually merging EPP and EDR. So we have seen other companies kind of moving in the same direction. So pure EDR solution adding EPP capabilities, or EPP products for endpoint protection and they're adding kind of ATP detection capabilities into their products. And we are using the Windows 10 security stack, and we are going to surface all events that are happening on the box into the same single console. So we give you full visibility into your endpoint security, but also this makes all those individual components not working in isolation anymore. So through our cloud, we are making those controls smarter, and we can update them through cloud connectivity and let them just be more updated and more agile as they used to be before. And with the next update, we also give you a centralized management. So through SCCM or Intune, you can finally manage all your endpoint security in a way better way than you used to before. And then back actually to the Creators update, that was the first journey integrating between the three, I call them the three ATP products that we have. We have Office 365 ATP, we have Azure ATP for users, which was previously it's still available, Microsoft ATA, an on-prem solution, but we cannot connect with on-prem, so now that they moved the product to the cloud as well, so we can connect those three ATP products to give you a single experience for your investigation, but also they are exchanging signals and detections and can respond immediately when AV detects something. Office 365 ATP can block it. If Office 365 knows something, it will let us know. And if this threat reaches the box, not via email because Office catches it, we will be on the endpoint to then detect it and block it. So two more things that I would like to highlight is also with the next update, we are giving customers full access to their own data through open standard REST APIs. So many customers have various other solutions in place, and they might just want to check what we know about an entity. For instance, they see an IP address, and they want to know what does Windows Defender ATP know about this IP address, so who else on my network communicated, and then also trigger maybe response actions from their other solutions. And then the next one is server support. We announced server support already, I think, a couple of weeks ago. So this is coming soon as well. So, and then what do our customers get from Windows Defender ATP? As I mentioned, it's a single console for all your security events. And it's an end-to-end solution. We also added a security analytics dashboard where you can see what machines are not up to date, where is an update missing or something like this, and then you can go back to your IT team and say, hey, why is this machine not updated, or why is this machine not configured with the configurations that I ask you to do in case there are different teams. Sometimes it's this case. And then, as I mentioned before, it's part of the bigger Microsoft Secure Stack, and we are exchanging detections, we are exchanging signals, but we also, I mean, even though it's three different consoles, you can investigate through the three different consoles without losing context. And that's already, I mean, I love that the teams are actually talking to each other and making this possible. So, and I think the third one is, that's what I already mentioned before. And with that, I'm giving back to Nathan, please.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about visibility and detection here, and I think this number here is, so Windows Defender ATP processes now over 970 million malicious security events per day from across the entire Microsoft enterprise and consumer ecosystem. Now that, to me, that's a staggering number, and really what it does is it just shows the kind of magnitude of the threats and the attacks out there. And the other thing it says is that visibility just isn't enough anymore. It's only half the battle. And so we like to say that cybersecurity has a capacity problem. So there's really three pieces to that. So first is really the massive increase in cyber attacks. And you see this every day. I think there was a new one this morning. I mean, yesterday when I was on the bus over, I saw the Deloitte thing. I mean, every day there's something new. And just looking at the sheer volume of attacks, couple that with the subsequent increase in alert volume from all the detection solutions out there. So we had a customer that at any given time had 90 different security solutions, all spitting out alerts all the time. So you've got those two pieces, and then couple that with the really well-publicized shortage of skilled cybersecurity staff, right? So I think the number that you see around now is there's over 1 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs worldwide. So you put that all together, and it really just means that there aren't enough people to keep up, right? So there's too many alerts, not enough people. And so until recently, the only thing that organizations could do is prioritize, right? They would assign a score to every alert they had. And it's certainly better than nothing. But when you think about it, if something's an 80 versus a 79, is there a material difference there in what you would do? And so the other piece of it is when you really think about prioritization, it's really just a conscious decision about what you're willing to ignore, for better or for worse. And so really, what does that leave you with? And it's pretty much this. You know, people and organizations are constantly trying to recruit cyber analysts to spend all day long really doing manual, repetitive work. And the two stats that I saw that kind of back this up.
I can send you the slide.
One of them is from an analyst firm called EMA, and they found that 92% of companies get over 500 alerts per day from their detection systems, and 88% see over 500 a day that are classified as either severe or critical. And so because they don't have enough people, you know what that means? It means that less than 1% of alerts are ever investigated at all. And the second piece of this, the kind of more human part of it, is a stat I saw that, more than half of all cybersecurity professionals are approached by a recruiter more than twice a week. So put that together, and you see there's a big problem, and the math doesn't work. So what are you left to do? What's the kind of answer here? And what we were talking about was security automation, and the question to that is, well, what does that mean? And this was our definition of what security automation is. And really, the first one is mimicking the ideal steps a human would take to investigate a cyber threat. The second is determining whether that threat requires action, then performing the necessary remediation actions, and then the fourth is deciding what additional investigation should be next. Now, that fourth one is really something that people don't get to, because when you're thinking about overworked people and not enough of them, trying to respond to alerts when there's no way they can possibly get to all of them, they never get to number 4. They never say, based on what I learned through this investigation and the actions I took, how do I apply that elsewhere? There just isn't enough time, there's not enough resources. So once you're done with one, you're on to the next one. But when you're able to use automation and move beyond human scale, you're then able to say, all right, based on what we learned here, how do we apply that elsewhere on the network? How do we find things that are common and look like what I've just found? And then how do we keep going? How do we spawn additional parallel investigations until we find nothing else? And I think that is the key to automation that you're just not going to be able to get with people. And I think that segues nicely to this. So in every conversation about automation, I think this is inevitable, where the elephant in the room is, are you going to automate away my job or my people? And one of our customers said this, which is, security automation is preventing people from doing a machine's job. I love that. And I think that's exactly right. It kind of flips it on its head, you know, because automation does help to take away that manual, repetitive work. And it gets rid of the things that machines will always do better than people, so that people can do things that people will always do better than machines. So I really love this. And I'm going to try here to show one customer and how they approached automation. So if you want to try that video.
Sure. Missing the mouse.
There you go, on the bottom.
Here we go, here we go.
Information security needs to be everybody's job, and it's easy to say that, and many companies say it, but we have to build it into the DNA of the organization. The days are gone when it would be somebody's specialist job to do security. The environment today means that we're seeing more alerts from more sources, and we were spending a lot of time and a lot of man hours and a lot of costs dispatching IT techs to deal with these incidents. It takes away from the ability to drive value to the business. And it's an unattainable business model to scale to people. When we first saw the technology from Hexadite, it seemed too good to be true. We tried the technology and it came true. It solved the problems for us, it reduced our costs, and that's what led us to form a deeper and longer partnership with Hexadite. I'm Doug Graham. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer at Nuance Communications. I think as a Chief Information Security Officer, you've got to be very focused on what's happening in the security market. Looking for what's next and looking for that next leap forward that can be that force multiplier or be that game changer is, I think, something that we're often looking for. Automation's in the core of the company's DNA, so it stands to reason that we should be doing that with security as well. Fast remediation and security is the key point to everything. The quicker we can intervene, the quicker we can maintain our defensive perimeter, and the quicker we can isolate the problem and stop that lateral movement. So it's not only an efficiency and cost thing, it's an effectiveness thing. With Hexadite, we're seeing effectively a 90 to 95% automation rate for these actionable alerts. Without Hexadite, we'd simply either be adding more people to the problem or doing less in other areas of security. Rather than scaling people out and then losing them because they're buried in a sea of alerts, I don't have to burden them with that, so we can give them more interesting work. We can make the work more interesting and create a happier working environment for everybody.
All right, so
That's me.
there you go.
Okay, so the entire solution that he just explained will be integrated in Windows Defender ATP. So for all of you who are already using Windows Defender ATP or testing it right now, you will not have to install something or get something in addition, appliance or whatever. So how you know Windows Defender ATP today, it will be the same in the future. We will just add this technology to the existing product. So before I jump into a demo, so this will be probably the new dashboard for the people that know Windows Defender ATP today. So you will see that we have the integration or the investigation and response widgets implemented, which shows you how many alerts the system actually received and investigated, how many of those alerts are being converted into an investigation. Not all alerts require an investigation. And then how many of those are being remediated. You can see what is the average time that the system takes or needs to really do the full investigation, spiderwebbing out to find other endpoints, and then remediate everything that needs to be remediated. And I think a very great number is also all the hours that were actually remediated. So we look at all the investigations and calculate everything together. And this is the time that your analysts are not bored doing the same job all over again. So I think very important is what Nathan mentioned, is let the machines do what they do better, but let your analysts really focus on their work. That there are so many threats happening that really need your analysts to look at, that can't just be automated, and also they can invest more time in their strategic work. So if Windows Defender ATP receives an alert, you can see Windows Defender ATP will then grab this alert and look at other alerts if they're related to the same threat, to the same attack, let's call it, and then we'll start an investigation. So let's have a look at the first one. It says communicating to a malicious network destination. So if you were an analyst and you see this alert, So what would be the kind of actions that you would start doing? So you would probably first determine what kind of machine on the network has communicated to this IP address. So that's the first step. You would probably go through, I don't know if when you use Windows Defender ATP, you look at the entire machine timeline of this machine. You try to find out what are the different events related to this. And then you would investigate your endpoint and see what kind of processes are running, maybe find some malicious tools that are actually communicating to this IP address. You then start taking your remediation actions by killing this process and then also maybe blocking the communication to this IP address, right? Sounds about right. So, and then we reach actually the point that Nissan mentioned. You probably stop here. And you would not, okay, let's see what else happens on this endpoint because this was the alert and you stop here. So a system that uses artificial intelligence and security automation would now actually spider web out to find other endpoints that might have communicated to this IP address and, of course, collect additional information from this endpoint and perform either the same remediation actions that were successful on the first endpoint, so repeat the action, and also make sure that the threat is gone, and then give all this information back to Windows Defender ATP to close the loop, and it's remediated, and everything is clean again. So usually, in many, many cases, one alert is just one entrance point or one threat from a broader scope. So an automated incident response team also needs to look at the bigger picture and see what other threats or some other signals on the box are maybe related to this one single alert that we have seen to understand the broader picture. So, so it needs to be able to correlate additional information from, in our case, it will be the Windows Defender ATP timeline or the entire database of your tenant to see what kind of other threats happened here. So I would like to jump into a demo. Let me set this up for a second. So it's kind of the same dashboard that you just saw before. So what we show, as I mentioned before, you see all kind of investigations that are currently running on this endpoint. And one thing to mention, so not all of the investigations or all the PC, you probably don't want all PCs or all investigations to just be automatically remediated. So there will be something like a kind of a semi-remediation. So what does this mean? So Windows Defender ATP will grab an alert, will go out everywhere, do all the investigation, and then provide you kind of with a remediation package to show you what would be all the steps that the next click, yes, remediate would perform. So either you do it manually if you want, because you see, oh, there are some critical machines, and I see this would cause whatever, or you trust the system and you let the automated response or remediation do everything automatically. So those are the options. And I heard, I talked to Brian Hooper, who is on our incident response team at Microsoft yesterday, and they just love it because previously, they saw an alert, and then they went through the machine timeline. And if you know Windows Defender ATP, I mean, you can still filter behaviors and information or everything. And it's a lot. And I mean, if you have a tier 1 analyst, they're probably overwhelmed with all the data and really correlating all the things together. So for them, just alone this step is huge, because all the investigation is done. You get presented with that's the result. This is everything we found on those different machines, and now they can continue their investigation if they need, or click on yes, go, and remediate the threat from the machine.
So I think that's a really good point, and just two pieces to that. So automation, no matter in what context, automation requires trust. right? And so one of the things that when we were talking to customers early on, it was this idea of when you start out, you want to be able to see what's about to be automated, right? And so we got to a point where after about a week of saying approve, 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 they said, all right, forget, just go ahead and automate this part. But we did see a kind of a difference between endpoints, go ahead and automate, or production servers, don't do that. Have someone in the middle to press approve. The second point I think that's interesting about this that we didn't really foresee, but became blindingly obvious after we heard this a few times, which is when you're able to see what remediation steps would be happening, and you can see a full audit log of all of the steps, and you'll see this here in a minute. One of the things our customers saw as a benefit was new analyst comes in, show them exactly the full steps that someone would take, that the system would take. They use this as a training tool as well, because now you're able to see all of the steps that the system would take, and if you're a new analyst that hasn't lived this yet, you start to see from beginning to end, and it's basically a new training tool.
So we can sell this as a training tool? Thanks for the... okay, so yeah, so those are all the investigations. Some are running, some are pending, and then there's something that's called pending asset. This could mean that the machine is turned off right now. So we see the threat, but the person left the office, shut it down. So the system is waiting till this asset comes back to then continue the investigation. And if it's one machine out of many, of course, everything happens on all the other machines, but then it will wait till all the machines that are infected by this one threat are being online and remediated. So let's have a look at our investigation that are currently running. So there's like, we will add you, or we'll give you some additional columns, whatever. So, but right now you see what is the status of this, what is the threat type, if there are some specific threats that have been found in this investigation, what endpoints are impacted, what was the start date of the investigation, and either the final time it was remediated or how long is it already running. If I click on one of those investigations, you can see this is kind of how the system starts working. So Windows Defender ATP receives an alert, and you can see it correlated for other alerts, and it's not starting an investigation for every single alert. So it correlates those alerts that are that have some commonality from whatever entity perspective. And then it reaches out to Windows Defender ATP Graph API to investigate all the different, like all the data that we collected from your endpoint, from all your onboarded endpoints and all the data that we have to see what do I need to do my investigation. If there is additional information that the technology needs to grab from the box, it will go to the box and then do some additional investigation and information grabbing on the box. And then you can see it reached it out to 2 endpoints in this case, because after one it found another client that was communicating to this IP address. And if I click on the computer, you can see the IP address, when was it last seen. So we give you additional insights. Who are the users that are logged onto the system, so that you get a bigger picture as well when you actually look at the investigation. And then from there, when you look at all the entities that have been analyzed, that's a lot. And I don't know who like if I was an analyst, I don't know if I would be eager to like investigate 2,257 files. And what is it, 84 processes? And it takes a long time to see if it's malicious and not. So you know from Windows Defender ATP, we have a detonation sandbox in the product. So today, if you see a file in your timeline, a portable executable, you can submit it for detonation. We are not doing this automatically, it's yours. And you can send it, and then you get back a full report on what this file is doing and capable to do. And we will use our sandbox to then, of course, submit and detonate all those files to see what else does the system need to do to continue the investigation and also think about remediation already. So all these entities have been analyzed. You can then click on this thingy here to see more details. And of course, if you want to learn what kind of files, you click on all the files and they will all be listed here. And then, yeah. So, and then it starts, of course, thinking about remediation. And as I mentioned before, we will use our internal components that are built into Windows 10. So in this case, it was a malicious connection to a potential malicious IP address. So we will use Windows Defender AV to remediate all those files that were malicious and part of this threat. We will kill the processes, we will quarantine the files, so all of these things will be done by Windows Defender AV. And then, because we want to block the communication to this IP address, we will add a blocking rule to the firewall so that that client is not capable to communicate to this IP address anymore. And as I mentioned, this will be done on all the other clients or any other machine on the network that is onboarded to Windows Defender ATP to clean everything. So, and then of course you get a nice, where's my mouse? I think my mouse is not really. So, and then you see everything was remediated. You see again the endpoints and a nice summary. So, and as Nathan mentioned, it's important that not only we train new analysts, but we keep everything recorded. So you might also need this for some privacy teams that ask you like, hey, what happened on the box, GDPR, compliancy, and all of this. And so this is, we log everything that the system performs in an investigation. So there are some things that were skipped because they're not required or not interesting here to complete, and everything else is completely locked, and you can export it in Excel if you are, if you like Excel better than a web browser. So, so then there are some cases where you feel like, or you sit in, you receive a call from an end user, and it's like, oops, I just clicked on something, and my PC is behaving weird, but there's no alert. So Windows Defender ATP will trigger automated incident response automatically through alerts. But if there's no alert, you still want to start investigations. So this is why we added also automated an investigation as a response capability. So in this case, Eva, she called help desk, and she's like, oh, something is weird here on my box, and you can trigger an investigation by just clicking on action, and then you see initiate investigation, and it will do exactly the same. So, and also sometimes we have the same, like, why do you want to run an antivirus scan? So yeah, because you want to run a full scan, or you want to make sure the latest updates are there. So it's just an additional action step for you if there are no critical signs inside Windows Defender ATP that something suspicious or malicious is happening on this box. So, and I think this is everything I have to say about the demo. So let me quickly check back here. So, are there any questions? Would you mind stepping either a little bit, because I don't think I can understand you, they're far away.
Are we able to have the users run this from their machine instead of going into this console?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Are we able to have the users run it from their machine, like right-click on the agent, run from there, or do we have to, as administrators, log into this console, find them, and run it from there?
Great question. So Windows Defender ATP, there is nothing visible on any endpoint. So for the users, it's totally transparent, and they can't trigger it. So this is a pure solution today for security operators and for security admins. So many of our customers, they actually have a SIEM system, a security incident event management system, where all kind of alerts from all various solutions feed into. And Windows Defender ATP alerts can go to the SIEM as well, and then they start usually the investigation from there. And you have to go back to Windows Defender ATP, to the console, to trigger the investigation. Or, as I mentioned before, we have an open API that you can access the data, but also trigger response capabilities. And I'm pretty sure that the response capability start investigation will be one of them if once it's available.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, please.
New functionality, will that be only supported in the future build of Windows 10 and will be backported to a previous build like 17.3?
So the question was, will this capability only be available in the next version of Windows, or are we going to backport it to a previous build of Windows? So no, because we need to change things on the sensor, and this will be the next version of Windows. And we would have loved to already bring it in, but we didn't make it in time. I cannot promise that there will be parts back in fall creators update, or if it will be just whatever spring creators second up. I don't know what the next name is. Yes. That's a nice question. So in the previous, in the Hexadite version of this product, there are playbooks. And you can adjust your playbooks, customize them. We will integrate playbooks into Windows Defender ATP as well, but this is not one of our biggest first milestones. And I don't know what time we will have this back. But yes, we will bring this into the system at some point. Ah, that's nice. I love all these questions. Jörg. Okay, so the question is, what about different data centers, or in this case, I think the German cloud, or? Okay, so I mean, currently Windows Defender ATP is available in the US and in the EU. So all the data is stored in the EU. Because, of course, the beauty about this product is the optics that Microsoft has, and the optics into what's happening on our customers' tenants, but without PII. So all PII will remain in the US, and when we put it into our global database to see what's going on, we will completely stripe out every single PII information from the data. So this is there. About other data centers, we are looking into where do we have more customer requests? Where does it make sense for us to go first? But then it's also what kind of work is behind it, because it's not only bringing this technology from a server technology into the data centers. We need to make sure that the services that we are using from Azure storage, from Azure here or there, that they're available in this data center. It's not just us, so we rely on some other services as well. And then there are some certifications required, and then they take time. You know, there's like law enforcement, whatever, and they take a while. So what's going on here? Sorry. So we are working on it, and if there are specific customers that you have in mind and they need something, tell us. We need to learn more, because many times when we then actually really talk to customers, they don't really need this. They look at the data, it's like, oh, that's easy, go. So have a conversation.
One of the slides we had waiting for user approval.
Yes?
What is that, and in what situations would you wait for user approval?
So that would be the semi-automated mode.
So yeah, what I mentioned earlier, so you have a fully automated response capability. So the question was, sorry, what was this waiting for user approval? So user is probably the wrong word. I asked to change it to security operator. So it's more, you need to now trigger the...
So this is that case exactly
yes.
where someone said on either this subset of machines or this versus, I want to have someone in band approving this before taking a remediation action. And so one of the things we want to do is put metrics around the time spent in between, right? From when the system said this is what we're going to do, and a person's actually able to do it. I think that helps on the decision to go in automated mode, but it also gives you some metrics around how long it's taking a person to get there.
Sorry, I thought user was...
Yes, I know. It's not yet final.
Change the wording.
Understand correctly that only Windows Server 2016 is supported?
So that's a great question. So Windows Server 2012 R2 and 2016 are going to be supported for Windows Defender ATP. And once we have this integrated, we need to see how we get it for Windows Server then as well. So because it needs to be built into the sensor again, and I'm pretty sure that we will work on server automated response as well, but I think from a priority perspective, the clients are more impacted today, but yes.
We're thinking about replacing our current solution with the Windows Defender ATP. So for us, 2012 R2 is very important, and also 2008 R2. That would be great, because we have thousands of servers in 2008 R2.
So
But at least 2012
R2, yes. So this is R2 and 16 are the two that we are going with. And of course then above. But yeah, and once this integration is done, I'm pretty sure that we will also provide it for servers as well. But
cool. Thank you.
Yeah. You already asked a question, you already asked a question you didn't ask. So let's split a little bit. Thank you.
So I know it's early, but can you share any thoughts on how this would integrate or potentially collaborate with the things in the Azure Security Center and security playbook?
So this is, yes, nice question, early question. So, but server support is also kind of, we work together with the Azure Security Center, so we are going in this direction, and then it will be the same. So once the server support is there, it's an Azure Security Center. Once this is in server support, it's an Azure Security Center. I come back to you. So the question is licensing. So Windows Defender ATP is part of Windows 10 Enterprise E5. So if you currently have Enterprise, E3, there's a step up to E5. Or if you're interested in all our awesome security heroes, we have it was called SPE5, Secure Productive Enterprise. Now it's called M365 E5. Just to have it's being recorded. So ATP is Windows 10 E5. It's part of Windows. So yeah, there's no extra that you can then install. So it's part of, like, the sensor is built into Pro, Education, Enterprise. So, but you need the E5 license to actually run it fully licensed. Quick question, wait a second. I have two more here. They were before you.
Just a quick one. Once the functionality becomes available, can you have it in learning mode first, just to better understand what it's trying to do?
So this is kind of the semi-automated response. So I mean, it starts investigating. It doesn't do that sounds horrible. It does a lot, but it doesn't start remediating your endpoints. No, the threats on your endpoints. I kind of, maybe that's a learning mode. So this is where usually he mentioned
exactly
this.
Right.
This is what customers start with.
Yeah, so 100% of our customers did exactly that. Put everything in semi-automated mode first, show me what it's going to do before it does it, and then once they get to a point where they trust it and see what it's going to do, and click approve for a week, that's when they move. But everyone starts there.
As long as you were tweeting about the presentation in the time we're looking, then I'm fine, okay? Jörg, just a second, there's one more here, and then I go business.
You mentioned especially for production system, you would not go for automatically approving, so someone else has to approve. Is there anything, or should approve, just in case? Is there any thing built in that allows us to send a message to someone else, maybe not just an user, as email made by
So the question was, Nathan kind of mentioned that in some cases you do not want to kick off the automated response. So is there a way then, because you have to trigger it manually now, to inform, I don't know, send a fire alarm to like 5 people, here's something ready for you to do? Great feedback, I don't know, to be honest. I don't know if there's an alerting.
Yeah, so the way that we were doing it, there's 2 ways. So one was email, obviously, and you're right, that could get lost. The second is we had what was, we called the Analyst Decision Center, and basically the idea is as soon as you logged in, you'd get an alert that popped up that showed these are the things that you need to pay attention to. And so I'm sure that's going to make it into the product, but so it's as soon as you log in, you see all the things that you have to pay attention to, and if you're someone that is an approver, obviously you're going to be logging in all the time. So it's email plus alerting within the app.
So we will see what will be then this kind of scenario in Windows Defender ATP. So not everything that you might have seen in the original Hexadite version will be available right away and the same. So we are integrating the technology, and then we find our ways to make it the way we want it. So, but I will get this feedback back. And are you okay with him first, because you're in line now? Okay, thank you.
I was just wondering, is this going to be like a Symantec and Malwarebyte replacement, or is it going to work in tandem? Or?
So Windows Defender AV, that is part of Windows 10, is your replacement for Symantec or McAfee or some other third-party AV solution. So you always want to have an AV solution. You don't want to end up just like, oh, I'm good now. I have like Windows Defender ATP and it remediates threats. You don't want to get to this point to have a threat, right? So you want to have all kind of pre-breach defenses high up and defending your endpoint. And only once there is an alert, now you want to go and investigate and remediate. So yes, please replace it with Windows Defender ATP, but not with ATP.
AV, not
AV, not
yes.
ATP, yeah.
Is there a capability to pull artifacts from an endpoint, like a memory image, a file, MFT, those kinds of artifacts?
To what?
Yeah, forensics.
So no. So forensic is more, we had this conversation before if we should actually talk about it or not in the session. So this is pre-breach, you just want to clean the thing and done, and then forensic is after the fact, right? So it's not urgent, so you can collect a little bit. It's more like understanding what happened, you're analyzing the memory, yep. Maybe also what were they after, what is the real threat behind all of this. Right. So we give you you have the rich machine timeline with everything that happened on the box. And you can also collect an additional forensic package. We do not have memory dumps.
What's in the package then?
The investigation package is something, ASAP registry, NetStat, all kind of communications that were open, all kind of other things from your box. I can show it to you afterwards what it is. Cool. But I would love to learn more about, would you pay the bandwidth and the price for downloading a memory dump and put it in the cloud? And because some customers say, yes, sure, I don't care because I have clients in Singapore and I don't want to fly there, so I need to grab it. And other customers like, I'm not actually really using it. It's just I don't have the time. So I would love to learn more about this.
Sure.
So we are here. I'm real over time. I was concerned I wasn't, but I am as usual. So here, you saw the slide before. Check out the case study from MSIT. Go, if you want, to the MSIT session that is today at 4. Brian Hooper talks about how they use Windows Defender ATP in the real world in the Microsoft network. And then it's today, right? It's Wednesday. Welcome, 3:15, sorry. 3:15, how Microsoft uses it. And then on the other slide, also the trial, aka.ms/WDATP. Sign up for the trial if you haven't tested out. Those are all kind of other ATP-related sessions. All will be available later as recordings if they're already over. And with that, I would love for you to please take a time later when you have a coffee and fill out the evaluation, and keep asking questions. You can always reach out to me or Nathan via all kind of social channels, emails, or whatever. Yes, okay, and with that, thanks for attending.
Thank you.